Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today's stream. Today, we'll be talking about Unveiling the Soul, in depth discussion on Sankhya Yoga from Bhagavad Gita with Mr. Vikas Agarwal, Pundit Mahesh Shastriji, and myself. Join us for an enlightening conversation as we dive deep into the profound teachings regarding the Sankhya Yoga chapter from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In this episode, we are honored to have three interesting panelists: Mr. Vikas Agarwal, who is a renowned author and spiritual guide, Pandit Mahesh Shastriji, who is esteemed Vedic scholar and philosopher, and myself, Shruti, a spiritual enthusiast and avid student of Bhagavad Gita. So let's meet after the intro. Together, we will explore the intricate concepts of the soul, its form, color, and shape, and seek to answer the age old question: who are we? This will be the beginning of the series of discussion that promises to offer insights and perspectives on understanding the essence of our existence and the path to spiritual realization through ancient scripts. Whether you're a seasoned student of the Gita or just beginning your spiritual journey, this video will provide you with a deeper understanding of one of the most important philosophical teachings in Hinduism. Don't miss out on this opportunity to expand your knowledge and connect with like minded seekers. Let's first invite Mr. Vikas Agarwal. Hello, Vikas.
Ji.
Let me introduce Mr. Vikas Agarwal. He grew up in a devout Hindu household in India. He completed his bachelor and master's in computer science and moved to the US to work at Microsoft. Dismissing the childhood beliefs about spirituality as immaturity and superstitions, he became a believer of materialism. That consciousness arises from matter. After learning about the two slit experiment and some aspects of quantum physics, he started questioning his entire belief system. This led him to study Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. His current belief system is not as rigid and solid as before, and is currently on the path to a continuous learning and realization of our true selves. As a part of this journey, he also wrote a book, Waiting to Breathe, which highlights his own personal journey from materialism to spirituality. Let's also invite Pandit Mahesh Shastriji. Hello, Panditji.
Ram, Radhe Radhe.
Pandit Mahesh Shastriji is a Panchang Siddhanti of mypanchang.com, and he prepares Panchangam calendars of 90% temples in the United States. All right. So today we'll be talking about Srimad Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. And I want to kick off this conversation, Vikasji, asking you a question of how does the second chapter in Bhagavad Gita start? I know that there's a war going on. Two sides are actually relatives of each other. And Arjun at a point is hesitating. That is where Bhagavad Gita even starts. And how does the second chapter begin?
So the second chapter begins with a situation where Arjun and Sri Krishna, they're in the middle of both the armies. And Arjun has the realization, as part of fighting this war, he has to shoot arrow at his grandfather, his brother, his relatives, his uncle, his guru. And he might have to kill them as well. He has fought with them before, but at that time, his intention was not to kill them or win over them. It was just to teach them a lesson. But this time around, he has to kill them to win the war. And he thinks killing your guru, killing your grandfather is a sin. They are worthy of his prayer, not their sort of killing. So he tells Sri Krishna, I cannot fight. If I kill them, anything we win will be soaked in blood and is not worthy of having. So the problem Arjun is facing is that he is under the illusion that the bodies that occupy his guru, his grandfather, are themselves, like are the real thing. So the chapter 2 begins with Sri Krishna telling Arjun about the way of reality. So the way Sri Krishna starts is, although you mean well, Arjun, your sorrow is sheer delusion. Wise men do not grieve for the dead or for the living. Never was there a time when I did not exist, or you, or these kings, nor will there come a time when we cease to be. Now, what is Sri Krishna talking about here?
Yeah, it's you call it, you're
Right?
calling it reality, but it's very hard to relate to it actually, because the reality in a situation I would think is there's a war going on. I'm facing my relatives. I don't want to face them in a way that I am made to face them. So how is Sri Krishna
Yeah.
talking about this?
So he goes on to say, just as in this body the self passes through childhood, youth, and old age, so after death it passes on to another body. Right? Now, the important part is that if you look at from scientific point of view, and we discussed that in our last chat, your body is not you.
Mm.
Most of your cells recycle within a year, right? You eat food and your cells die, they replicate. So ultimately, your body is not you, but you keep a form, right?
Right.
And you keep memories and you keep awareness, right? Now, the materialist point would be that all of that is arising from matter, right? And what Sri Krishna is arguing is that consciousness does not die when the bodies perish, right? And let's talk about consciousness a little bit,
Yeah.
right? So we think that humans are conscious, other animals are not conscious. I
Mhm.
think that's a little bit a misstatement. Everything in the universe is conscious, but the level of consciousness is different. Like even among humans, we think that we're living in the same reality. That's not true.
Mhm.
Everybody lives on a different plane of reality depending on their level of consciousness, right? And that seems like a bold statement, and we can talk about it. I'll get to that. But the point is that everything is conscious, but
Mhm.
the level of consciousness that humans have got on this planet is way higher than any other animal. How so? Because humans are aware that they will die,
Mhm.
and humans can plan for the future and they can take lessons from the past,
Mhm.
which also allows them to work with other humans, cooperate with them, and build marvelous things, right?
True.
So
Yeah.
that's a huge gift. And it is a gift that allowed us to be the dominant species on this planet.
Right.
There's a saying, though, the bigger the gift, heavier the burden.
That is
This
true.
amazing gift comes with a huge burden. And that burden is that just as we can plan for the future, we can feel anxious about the future. Just as we can take lessons from the past, we can have regrets for the past, right? Have you
True.
ever seen a bison regretting about the past or worrying about the future? Bison just grazes grass for 18 hours a day, right? He's not worrying, what about the grass tomorrow? Let me just store some somewhere. I mean, they have some mechanism to store within their stomach, through genetic mutations, but they're not doing it consciously,
That's right.
right? So this amazing gift we have is also the cause of the existential angst we have because we know we're going to die, and that's the biggest fear we have. And coming back to Arjun,
Yeah.
he has even bigger fear than dying. He's a kshatriya.
Yeah.
For him, the greatest honor is to die on a battlefield. So he's
Yeah.
not afraid of dying,
Mhm.
but he is afraid of killing his guru. He's afraid of killing his grandfather, right? And
Right.
that's what Krishna is trying to tell him is that this is your dharma, right? You are Kshatriya. Kshatriya dharma is to participate in a righteous battle. And this is a righteous battle because it's dharma versus adharma.
Mhm.
So if you are afraid about killing someone, you mean well, but your sorrow is sheer delusion, because there was never a time when I didn't exist, you or these men.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very different perspective that Shri Krishna is saying to Arjun. I have a few questions about what we just talked about. One thing is we talked about Kshatriya Dharma, and I think this concept of Dharma, which is more in parallel with duty, I want to highlight that it is not pointing to religion from how I read it. It's more about what is your duty at the moment is to fight this war for dharma, which is the duty, which is the correct way. And the other thing you talked about was each of us is living in our own plane of consciousness, which strikes to me because I feel like there's always this feeling that I have that whatever I saw and whatever someone else saw, they have their own back. I think the history or the memories from their past which build their present to say that this is what is happening in front of me. Is that what you're talking about, or this is something else?
Little bit. Actually, what I want to talk about is even deeper than that.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've read the book called Autobiography of a Yogi
Mhm.
by Yogananda Paramahansa. In that, there's a chapter where Yoganand's guru, Sri Yukteswar Giri,
Mhm.
tells him about different planes of existence. So this is Earth plane, and then there is a higher plane
Mhm.
where bodies act differently. You can call it Swarg or heaven. They're different plane of existence. But on the Earth itself, there are various planes of existence.
Mhm.
It has been described very beautifully by one philosopher. His name is um, I'm forgetting the name, David R. Hawkins.
Mhm.
And the book is called Power versus Force.
Mhm.
He also expands it in his next book called Letting Go.
Okay.
So he has been able to sort of create a map of consciousness from 0 to 1000, and it's
Mhm.
not a linear scale, it's a logarithmic scale. Example, 1 point higher doesn't mean 1%, it's 100%. It's a factor of change.
Oh,
So he
see.
talks about different level of consciousness. So there is a guilt, shame is the lowest one,
Mhm.
anger, pride, and then courage. So courage maps somewhere around 200.
Mhm.
Beyond 200, you are a credit to society. Below 200, you are a deficit to society. You are causing harm to the
I see.
rest of humanity. And he talks about where Jesus maps in that, where Gautam Buddha map in that. They
Mhm.
are to 1000, like a perfect being. And the way somebody at level 500 looks at the world is very different as somebody with 20 looks at it. So
I.
somebody living in shame all their lives,
Mhm.
they're constantly looking at people that they're judging me, right? They're
Mhm.
bad about me. It makes them feel bad. That's a different reality for them.
Mhm.
As well as somebody who's at 500, which is love, they're looking at everybody with open heart. The world is heaven for them.
Mhm.
So there's a different plane of existence. Two people can see the same picture but can derive very different meaning from it. I think this is exactly what you were referring to.
Yeah, there is actually a very famous Japanese author. I forgot his name, but
Murakami.
he's written a book where he describes like seven people seeing the same incident, and they are all telling different stuff. And I think that is where I got that idea from. That this is how we are thinking about consciousness, because whatever has happened from your past and you are at the present moment, then that's what is building so many things for you. Then whatever you perceive applies to it,
I'll
basically.
give you an example of that. So Bhagwan Buddha, when he was going in a forest, there was a dreaded robber there. His name was Angulimal.
Mhm.
And anybody who passed through there, he would kill them, rob them, and take their fingers, cut them off, and put them in a garland around his neck. That's why he was called Angulimal.
Yeah.
So when he was passing through this forest, people told Bhagwan Buddha, please don't go through that forest. There's a dreaded criminal lives there, he will
Yeah.
kill you. And Bhagwan would say, let's see. And Bhagwan Buddha goes through that forest.
Mhm.
Angulimal, just the way he looked and made this person feel, he
Mhm.
falls on Bhagwan's feet
Mhm.
and becomes a changed person,
Mhm.
right? It's a different reality. And people with higher consciousness, they transform the world. For example, if you look at Bhagwan Buddha or Jesus, Bhagwan Krishna, like these people, I mean, sure, they were all humans, so I think it's okay to say people. Uh, their impact is felt thousands and thousands year,
Mhm.
after they left this planet.
Of course.
So, there's a saying in Bhagavad Gita. It is that out of 10,000, only one will go on the path of dharma. Out of 10,000 who go on the path of dharma, only one will realize it. Out of 10,000 who realize it, will actually achieve freedom, right?
Mhm.
But one is enough
Right.
for the
Interesting.
salvation of humanity.
Yeah, two questions that come to mind when I listen to all this. Right, one is, does Sri Krishna also talk about how to enhance your consciousness? Because you want to be able to, like you said, one out of 10,000 will go towards that path. How does one realize that? Does Sri Krishna talk about that?
The funny thing is, Arjun asks him the same question.
Okay.
So we might have to sort of skip a few shlokas to get there,
Mhm.
but Bhagwan Krishna talks about it, and I think every tradition, every spiritual tradition, Vedic, Buddhist, or even Jesus,
Mhm.
they talk about the same thing. So in Gita, Bhagwan Krishna says, physical sensation, cold and heat, pleasure and pain are transient. They come and go. So bear them patiently, Arjun. Only the man who is unmoved by any sensations, the wise man, indifferent to pleasure, to pain, is fit for becoming deathless. And then he says, these bodies come to an end, but that vast embodied self is ageless, fathomless, eternal. Therefore, you must fight, Arjun. And then, um, you know, Arjun asked this, that how does this person, speak? How does he behave? So, uh, Bhagwan answers this question, um, that uh, when a man gives up all desires that emerge from the mind and rests centered in the self by the self, he is called a man of firm wisdom. He whose mind is untroubled by any misfortune, whose craving for pleasure has disappeared, who is free from greed, fear, anger, who is unattached to all things, who neither grieves nor rejoices if good or bad things happen. That man is a man of firm wisdom. Having drawn back all his senses from the object of sense, as a tortoise draws back into its shell, that man is a man of firm wisdom.
Hmm.
So, what he's talking about is somebody who's unmoved, who is established in the self by the self, right?
Mhm.
Once you establish yourself in the self by the self, then whatever happens around you in the world doesn't bother you, and you can perform your duty as prescribed. And this is what he's prescribing Arjun, is that don't let these thoughts of pity move you from your duty. Do your duty without worrying about pleasure, pain, cold or heat. Um, so this is sort of what Bhagwan Krishna talks about it.
Mhm.
And in this tradition, Bhagwan Buddha gave an eightfold path. You know, right view, right action, right vision, right view. So there's eightfold path, which is very, very similar to what Bhagwan Krishna has described here.
Right. Right. Makes sense. So when Arjun listens to all this, does he have more questions about who we are? If this is
Well,
all
this
not true.
this is only second chapter, and
Mhm.
Bhagavad Gita has, if you think about it, it's 18 chapters. So of
Right.
course he has a lot more questions. Uh,
Yeah.
16 chapters.
Mhm.
Um, but this is just the beginning. Like chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga, is basically the essence of the entire Bhagavad Gita.
Mhm.
If if you can get sort of freedom from chapter 2,
Mhm.
if not, then read the rest of it.
I see. Okay. At this point, I do want to let the viewers also know that please start asking your questions. We are here to answer you. Pandit Mahesh Shastriji is also here to answer you, and Vikas Agarwal ji is also here. So please ask any questions that pop up in your mind. A lot of questions are popping up in my mind, so I'll continue asking them. But I shouldn't be the only one asking. So please comment in the stream, and I'll take up your question as it comes. Okay. So the other question I have, Vikas ji and also Mahesh ji. So what does an individual have to do? When I was growing up, I listened to a lot of stories where we talk about cycles of rebirth, and that happening for eternity. And each cycle we are trying to learn something to go towards moksha. Is this what Sri Krishna is also saying when he says that the soul is eternal, nothing happens, no matter like your death or your body doesn't matter because the soul is immortal? Is he talking on the same terms as something that I?
Actually, Bhagavan Krishna even says that uh, death is certain for the born. For the dead, rebirth is certain. Since both cannot be avoided, you have no reason for your sorrow. He talks about it.
Yeah.
But, you know, he actually even um, uh, he takes it as a fact,
Hmm.
right? That for dead, rebirth is certain. So what is there to be sad about it, right? But, you know, I think what he's prescribing Arjun is it's sort of a way to calm his anxiety,
Yeah.
but the freedom you get is by performing your duty at this moment. And I think one of the questions you asked, how do we practice this in our real life,
Yeah.
right? I think
One
that's the biggest question. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was saying one thing is, this setting of Arjun and Shri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is where we know what Arjun's next move is supposed to be, right? You and I, when we live in this reality or this plane of existence, how does one know what their duty is? How do we know, like, what's the next right thing to do?
The
Yeah.
thing is, Krishna could have ended the war, quickly. I
Yeah.
mean, he could have avoided the war, but there is no point in doing that because everybody has to do their karma. Everybody has to contribute. It is like I remember we had a several uh, talk, and even with Vikas ji also, and Vikas ji also said, like, it is also written in one of the book I read. I don't remember the exact name, but it's like uh, life is like what we are is like a game, like the God has created this universe, then he was playing by himself, like, there is a game of chess. He would play from this side, and then he would turn, and then on other side, and this side, and this, you got bored. Why don't I create like something, a different existence, who has a consciousness of me, and who has a mind of its own,
Mm,
who has a mind of its own. And then, so let's have that. So he created that, and then this is thought, wow, this is nice, let's create more of the species, like. And then he threw the key in the ocean. Now we all forgot, I think this is the Vikasji's word. And then we all forgot where the key is, that we are the God, that our consciousness is basically true. So the thing is, we are what is just the consciousness, and that we have to know. Like, have you ever seen the place? Like, there was a play, like, when uh, somebody like the character you love, dies in the play, and then you become sad, right?
Ah,
And then when you see somebody, right, then you really, oh wow, he's still alive, right? It is
yes.
that kind of thing. So we know we will be eternal, but we are looking ourselves into the mirror, what we see, what clothes we are wearing. Like somebody playing a role of Shivaji Maharaj, he will think he's a Shivaji Maharaj, Shivaji the Great, but he knows, like, he couldn't even go and fight the war. He's nowhere close to Shivaji Maharaj, right? In
Yes.
reality, but he's playing that role so deeply, he's
Mhm.
acting that. So, Shruti, you are playing role of Shruti, I am playing a role of Mahesh, and like everybody is, Vikas ji is playing his role, everybody is playing their role. So we are so much deep and looking ourselves into the tiny well, so
Yeah.
with that, the well is the universe. We never see the come out. And I think I will let Vikas ji explain that about the importance of that, using the Purusha Sukta and all. So he can.
Yeah. So this is actually sort of a theory, you can call it, that was stated by Alan Watts, and he's very famous on YouTube. He's just this beautiful voice, a British philosopher of Hinduism and Zen Buddhism. He's written quite a few books on Zen Buddhism. That in the beginning there was just God, and then God, you know, just God. So God became bored, and God just created this whole existence
Mhm.
out of himself or herself, just being gender inclusive.
Mhm.
And so everything is God, and God being God, you know, he's so good at it that he made it so realistic that he forgot that he's God. And here we are, stuck here in Martelok, under the guise of Maya.
Yeah.
And, Purush Sukta that Panditji alluded to is from one of the Vedas, where this whole universe is made out of this, being Purush.
Mhm.
Two theories of existence that were stated in Vedas. One is Hiranyagarbha, and it was my favorite sort of shloka from Veda. And the
Mhm.
thing that really blew my mind was this: before anything, there was not even nothing, right? So
Yeah.
this is very deep, and people who are, who know science, who love to think scientifically, it will appeal to them, right?
Mhm.
you know what do we look at? Everybody's, you know there's this earth, and outside of earth there's nothing, there's just space, right?
Mhm.
But before existence there was not even space,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
that's what, at least my interpretation of that is. um and I think your question was, how do we know what our duty is, right?
Yeah, because this is it it's different when we read something like Bhagavad Gita or Ramayana and we know that what they're next because we know the whole setup. In our own life, I think I have a lot of people, including myself, who are living thinking, okay, this is the right way to do something. How do
Yeah,
we know
I
what
mean,
is
that's a very good question, because the society has become way more complex than it was in the time of Arjun. So Arjun, a Kshatriya, he's a Kshatriya Dharma. So I want to just take 1 minute to explain what Dharma is.
I was about to ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good point to explain that.
Dharma comes from the word dhri, to hold, right?
Mhm.
And in our lives, we're always seeking to hold on to something, right? But everything is changing.
Mhm.
You know, that's what, Buddhism is about. Right? Everything is changing, and you can't hold on to anything. Then what can you hold on to?
Mm.
You can hold on to Dharma, right? So there was one story from Madhyamika Nikai in Buddhism, that there was this king, and Gautam Buddha tells him, "King, suppose somebody coming from south, the person you trust the most, is coming and telling you there's a huge mountain coming from south, which is crushing everything in its path towards you, right?
Mhm.
Then another comes, that one is coming from east, the other one comes, one is coming from west, the other one says one is coming from north. There are four mountains coming from all sides, coming to crush your entire capital and your entire kingdom. What will you do?
Oh my God, evacuate everyone.
Where?
Yeah, it's kind of a dharma sankat question. I don't know how to save everyone.
So then the king answers, if that is happening, there is nothing needs to be done but to hold on to dharma,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
Then Bhagwan Buddha says, this is happening. Those mountains are sickness, old age, death, right?
Right.
Rolling in. Old age is rolling in,
Hmm.
is rolling in, sickness is rolling in, right? Those are like those mountains. So dharma is something you can hold on to, achal, right? Principle. So from Buddhism point of view, Four Noble Truth and Eightfold Path. From Vedantic point of view, you have Upanishad, Atma, and Bhagavad Gita's Updesh.
Hmm.
I don't see much difference actually in Buddhist teaching and Vedantic teachings. And
There is
so,
only small difference, very small difference, not much at metaphysical level. And I would like to add that, if because you don't mind. So the thing is, Buddhism, they do not, Buddha never accepted or acknowledge the existence of soul. He has always said is all about desires. He knew that the reincarnation happens, but that may be mind or due to desires. Okay. Whereas Adi Shankaracharya, when he came later than Buddha, I mean, Adi Shankaracharya. So using these Vedantic principles, by the way, his ashram where he did all the studies and became the Shankara is still near on the banks of river Narmada. I will encourage everybody to go there. And so he says, okay, who did not see there is no soul? I mean, who did not feel there is no soul? So there has to be something about it. So that is only the basic
yeah,
only small metaphysical difference. But other than that, both are non-dualistic. I mean, there is only one thing, and yeah,
I call it the Indian binary system. Is one.
Yeah.
Sikhism, what is Sikhism? Ek Omkar.
Hmm.
Sikhism at the base level is basically Advait, right?
Hmm.
And what is Buddhism? Shunyata.
Hmm.
Zero and one, basically. So it's a binary system.
I see. Yeah, that summarizes it pretty quick.
And yes, so we were talking about dharma, right? Dharma is something that gives you, when all else fails, your family, your relation, your parents, your children, your wealth, your power, your body, your strength, you cannot hold on to anything.
Hmm.
They will all change. They will all leave you.
Hmm.
What can you hold on to? You can hold on to dharma,
Okay.
right? To hold. You know, funny thing is that it reminds me of a story that there's a famous um, sadhu in India, Shri Hit Premanandji.
Hmm.
He talks about when he was a kid, he went to his aunt's place, and then his uncle became disabled, and they had a nice house, so his uncle was disabled. He couldn't even go to sort of toilet by himself, so he was put up in sort of an area which nobody could visit, like put aside. And then he happens to stumble upon him, and he says, then uncle tells him the story that, look at this house. I
Hmm.
was working, I was earning, I made all of this possible, you know, and today, all of my family, they're just waiting for me to die,
Hmm.
right? Then Hit Premanandji say that everybody will leave you. There'll be a time when everybody would reject you, but God will never reject you.
Hmm.
Jesus will never reject you. Krishna will never reject you. Buddha will never reject you.
Hmm.
So you can hold on to that.
Yeah.
You
That's
cannot do anything else. Like you have wealth could go away. You have strength, power, body. It could all go away. It will all go away.
yeah,
So
very
now
true.
coming back to the duty part is that from Kshatriya Dharma, it's pretty straightforward. Righteous war, you got to go fight. In
Yeah.
today's world, we what kind of righteous war do we have?
Yeah.
I had a very interesting incident when I was like 19 years old. I went to a temple,
Hmm.
and there was a Panditji sitting there. And he asked me, "What is your caste?"
Hmm.
I said, "My caste. I am Brahmin because I read Shastra. I mean, we had them in our home, you know, and I used to read them.
Hmm.
I am, Vaishya because we have business. My father has business.
Hmm.
I'm Kshatriya because I will protect my family. And I'm Shudra because I do all my cleanups after me."
Hmm.
So in
Yeah.
this case, that original caste system of duty doesn't apply in modern. We may have to assume all four at
Yeah.
different points of our lives,
Very true.
right? So how do we find what our duty is? And that's where dharma comes into play. Dharma is the guide. It's that light that will guide us through the dark alley. If you
Hmm.
eightfold path of Bhagavan Buddha, if you look at Advaita, right? Bhagavan
Hmm.
talked about in chapter 2, the person who is sane in pleasure, in pain, in sorrow, in happiness, that is the person, fit to be immortal.
Hmm.
Dharma will guide us what our duty is. And
Hmm.
that's why we should study Dharma. That's why we should sit with people who discuss Dharma,
Hmm.
learn about it. And
Very.
once you realize it, once then you don't need any scriptures.
Yeah. Yes, very true. And interestingly, that also pops up another question in my mind. So I think this is a um, very strong idea that we are all one, and I completely get it that multiple schools of thought have said the same thing. Like you said, Buddhism has put forth the same thing. Bhagavad Gita says the same thing. Um,
Thoroughly said sub ek. Guru
yeah,
Nanak said sub ek.
yeah. And the individuals today, like you and I, or rather I should say I, who is more like common folks, how do they relate to this? Or basically, I'll tell you why I'm asking this question is because I think something that you don't see is hard to accept. And I know that that's not the reason not to accept it, because you need to be open minded enough to uh, agree to something which you cannot see. There are tons of examples of that as well. But if in day to day someone is to accept that, because unless we accept that we are all one, all of these other things, which is sorrow, grief, joy, no matter what, it's very hard to not react to anything, right? Unless you come to that acceptance that we are all one and this is Maya, or
Yeah.
this is an illusion. So how does like a common individual, I would say, um, who is not achieved that level of consciousness, or they are not privileged to be there at this point, how do they come to that acceptance?
So you're asking, okay, how do you learn to fly F-35?
Yeah. Yes.
So, um,
Yeah.
one, don't worry about flying F-35.
Mhm.
Don't worry about, like, I mean, I can talk about, there was a time when I was, I mean, I'm still a common person, but I wanted to feel that unity. I wanted to force feel that unity,
Mhm.
right? And then I read about certain psychedelics like DMT, psychedelic mushrooms, LSD. You know, Steve Jobs, took LSD, and that opened his mind. Ram Dass was a big fan of LSD until he met Baba Neem Karoli,
Mhm.
and I thought I've got to feel that. You know, I was obsessed with feeling unity.
Mhm.
And but I couldn't get my hands on DMT or LSD. Uh, so I chose, what could be other path? One way is, go to Mexico, or get toad venom, or go to Costa Rica, do ayahuasca.
Mhm.
Uh, I didn't have enough courage to go alone,
Mhm.
to be honest. I was trying to find my friend. Hey, anybody want to go have some ayahuasca DMT in Costa Rica? Nobody said, hey, dude, I can go to a beach with you. I'm not going to go on a drug trip with you
Yeah.
to Latin America. I said,
Thank
okay.
God.
Then I found other ways, to realize that one of them was through breath,
Mhm.
a lot of pranayama. I learned about breath hold, and I held my breath for a long time. There was a time when I held it for 4 minutes. And when I was doing that, at certain point, I felt out of body experience.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, maybe that's what unity looks like, right? Only later I realized, it's that my brain was oxygen deprived and I was just fainting. There was no unity there. I was just chasing this experience. And there was taking a digression here, Joseph Goldstein, he's a famous Buddhist monk here, not a monk, but preacher.
Mhm.
He went to Burma for meditation. He had this mystical experience, and he goes to tell his teacher, hey, I had this experience. Teacher was unimpressed. He said, oh, don't get attached to that.
Mhm.
When I heard that story, I said, okay, I am too obsessed with truth.
Yeah.
I should just let it go,
Mhm.
right? And I let that go. And I continued on my practice, on my meditation. And one day I was meditating, uh, and I had that experience. Uh, I don't want to talk too much about it. It's just undescribable. I cannot describe it, even
Yeah.
though I've tried a little bit to describe it in my book, in one of the chapters. But when you feel that, you feel whole, complete, you
Yeah.
know.
That
And
is pure bliss. If you have experienced Shruti, it's a pure bliss. You will, it's a hard to describe actually. And I agree with Vikas ji. Like, it's very tough to describe. That is pure bliss, even more than bliss, I would say.
Yeah.
yeah, and you're not Vikas, you're not Shruti, you're not Pandit Mahesh Shastri. You don't have any brother, sister, parents, son, spouse, nothing. You are beyond all the attributes,
Everything.
and you are just I am, right? And I
Yeah.
am not in a egoistic sense.
Lowercase I, not the uppercase I.
I am in the sense of you are that,
Yeah.
right? So I think we've digressed quite a bit. Uh,
Path to acceptance then, for
but
something which is, that we are all one, would be to keep meditating and not chase it.
yes, don't get attached to it. Just do what comes in front of you.
Mhm.
And the second book I'm writing, I'm talking about some of these things, is how do we get freedom in day-to-day life? You can get freedom right at this moment.
Yeah.
This moment, for 1 second, just drop all your attributes.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine, but yeah.
I mean, if you imagine, don't
Yeah.
imagine, right?
Yeah.
This moment, at any given moment, you can be free, right? Suppose, I was an engineering leader. I had a lot of, engineers that, worked in my team.
Mhm.
One of the common complaints among them was, because I want some challenging work.
Mhm.
I'm getting bored with this work, right?
Mhm.
I ask them, do you feel bored when you're washing dishes or doing your laundry or folding your laundry? Yeah, that's such a boring thing. The thing is that you can get freedom by folding your laundry. Just
Yeah.
imagine this: you have a shirt, right? You're folding it. You lay it on the station, remove all the wrinkles.
Mhm.
One fold, then the sleeve. Second fold, then the sleeve. then the main fold. And if you do it with all your attention and focus in that action, you achieve freedom.
Hmm.
And that is what that is Sankhya. That is what Bhagavan Krishna is describing, that if you perform your action as such, whatever comes in front of you, that will deliver you freedom. So
Hmm.
don't think about attaining moksha or nirvana. Don't think about getting enlightenment.
Yeah.
Just do what comes in front of you with complete focus, right?
True.
With in Buddhism, we would call mindfulness, right?
Hmm.
So just do that. Just taste that little bit of freedom in small things in life and expand from there. Your path will become clear. Dharma will guide you. You
Got
know,
it. Yeah, that's very simple and strong, I would say, at the same time.
like
Great.
my favorite activity during the whole day is making dinner. I make salad for me and my wife. I got two bowls, and I am free when I'm making that salad.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
ritual.
Actually, this reminds me also of another book called as Ikigai. I don't know if you have read it.
I
Um,
haven't read it, or I've seen it.
Yeah, I think Ikigai book also talks about there is this concept or an experience that the Japanese talk about, where they're saying they are in the state of flow, which means that nothing around them matters. It could be a very simple task, but you're doing it with so much focus that you don't care what exists, whether even you exist, and you're doing it. So it gives a very simple examples in the book, like someone who is a cup maker, like a pottery or a cup maker, or someone else who is making brushes for paints.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, so they went on a tour where they were supposed to understand about the brushes, and the lady who was putting them together didn't even realize they were there. So she was that much into the work. And I think that is what you are referring to here as well, that what.
Engineers. So the software engineer that came to me, the work is not challenging,
Yeah.
not growing. The reason is that when they're doing the work that's in front of them, which will help customers, which will help their peers, right?
True.
But they feel anxious that what I'm doing will not be valued by market.
Yeah.
When they have this anxiety,
Yes.
they start feeling bad, right? What they don't realize is that if you can have a focus on this sort of mundane task, imagine what you could achieve by that focus.
That's true.
The biggest skill you're developing is the skill of focus. Right?
Hmm.
I mean, in there's a Zen koan story is that one monk goes to the master, says, "Master, I have been in the monastery for 10 years. I haven't achieved freedom.
Mhm.
Why? I'm leaving. You don't know how to teach." The master says, "Freedom is so easy. When you're hungry, eat. When you're sleepy, sleep." He says, "But that's what I do." But you don't. When you're hungry, you don't eat. You eat even when you're not hungry,
Oh, I see.
right? And when you're eating, you're thinking about something else. Now it comes back to the burden of consciousness,
Yeah.
right? That we're always making plans about the future or judging ourselves based on our past actions,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
So our biggest gift is our heaviest burden.
Mhm.
And what Dharma tells you is how to lighten that burden, right?
Yeah.
And you talked about losing the sense of self, right? What that really is, that you're not worried about future, you're not anxious about past, you don't have regrets about past. And once you live in the present moment, there is no I.
Yeah.
I only exist in the past or in the future.
Hmm.
Moment, I does not exist,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, very interesting. And I also don't want to miss out on other teachings of Sri Krishna in chapter 2. I know I've been hogging the conversation mostly, going from one point to other as questions popped up to me. But what else does Sri Krishna say in chapter 2?
There is one very important part.
Mhm.
Uh, Actually, there are two important parts that I wanted to touch upon. Let me just find that right verse for that. Uh, Looks like I can't. Okay, I can't find it on the book, so I'll just talk about it. So what he says is there is a there is a certain person.
Mhm.
They have abandoned all desires, and they have all sense objects. They're living the life of an ascetic, right? But in their mind, they're still attached to pleasures, right?
Mm.
Such person is mithyachari. And that is actually a very important concept in our Sanatan philosophy. And actually, it's the whole sort of modern spiritual, movement actually uses that. And that is thoughts are things. Have you heard of that? Thoughts are things.
No?
So, for example, I think Nikola Tesla was a big believer in that. Like, imagine anything around you.
Yeah.
Things. Imagine iPhone.
Hmm.
Before it existed in physical reality, it existed in somebody's mind, right?
As a thought. Okay, I see.
Right? In Steve Jobs' mind, that I will make a phone like that. Before we had plane, they existed in Wright brothers' mind,
Hmm.
right? And those,
It did existed in Ravana's time also. In
sure,
Valmiki Ramayana, I was just sorry for breaking on
and
the wrong
all the
side. Continue.
physical things, they manifest from thoughts.
Hmm.
So, for example, I'll give you an example. Do you steal? When you go to a store, do you steal?
No.
Right? You don't. But that alone is not sufficient for you to not be a thief. If you even have a thought of stealing, you are a thief,
Oh, okay.
right? So those thoughts accumulate karma.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I'm taking a step back, going back to the gaming analogy, right? And I'll connect birth, rebirth with level of consciousness from David R. Hawkins, right? So imagine, forget about all the religious, connotation and burden, all of that. Just think from a rational person's point of view
Hmm.
that you're a gamer, right? And there are multiple levels until you reach the end. I mean, there's a god level or master level after which there is no game, right?
Hmm.
So you keep going to the next level
Hmm.
and you become more skilled with each level. You have more powers with each level.
Hmm.
And now look at, Indian philosophy about that.
Hmm.
But you're ascending in the level of consciousness,
Hmm.
right? You do more, better, but eventually every single person will reach there,
Hmm.
right? You, me, Panditji, Jesus, you know, Baba Neem Karoli, they're all on a different level,
Right.
but it's the same journey that we're all taking,
Got it.
same common destiny.
Hmm.
And for example, in this birth, Shruti, maybe your level of consciousness is 350.
Hmm.
And if you make the best use of your 350, if you hold on to dharma, in next birth, you will have even better circumstances so that you might achieve a level of 450.
Yeah.
Actually, that is a question also in Bhagavad Gita. Uh, Arjuna asked to Lord Krishna, what happens? Somebody does the spiritual advancement, and he dies. Oh, so does he have to start over, all over from the beginning in his next birth? So Krishna answered this: no, he will start from where he left off, because that is called Purva Punya, what you like, memories from the past life. So the memories can never be erased. It goes into your subconscious mind. See, like your vidya is also beginningless. Likewise, avidya is also beginningless. Remember this,
Mhm.
according
And
to
he,
the Veda.
in chapter 2 itself, he says is, on this path, no effort is wasted.
Mhm.
No gain is ever reversed. Even a little of this practice will shelter you from great sorrow.
Hmm.
It's
Int-
beautiful,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, if you look at each paragraph, you could just read chapter 2 and gloss over passage after passage, but then it is written so beautifully and perfectly that each word is there to deliver some meaning,
Right.
right?
And if
So
you read
this,
Bhagavad
yeah,
Gita chapter 2, probably you got the 99% out of the whole Bhagavad Gita. That doesn't mean you should not complete the whole Bhagavad Gita, because everything is connected.
yeah. And although in some cases, if you were at 800 last birth and you're born at 900, like Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi, right? I don't know if he read Gita. I don't think he read Vedas. He just was realized as a 16-year-old boy, right?
Yeah.
So Bhagwan Krishna also talks about it in Gita, is that the scriptures dwell in duality,
Hmm.
beyond all opposites, Arjun, anchored in the real and free
Hmm.
from all thoughts of wealth and comfort. As unnecessary as the well is to a village on the bank of a river, so unnecessary are all scriptures to someone who has seen the truth.
Hmm.
Read Bhagavad Gita,
Yeah.
right? Like we do, we're pretty low on that consciousness level.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
not everybody needs it.
So, because we have a one question to ask. You see, most people on our stream, they may not understand English well. So, what would you call consciousness in Hindi?
Uh,
जरा
कुछ
हिंदी में
भी कह
बता दो लोगों को.
लीजिए, आत्म कह लीजिए, ब्रह्म कह लीजिए। अगर शेक्सपियर ने
चैतन्य.
कहा कि अगर आप गुलाब को किसी और नाम से भी बुलाओगे तो वो उतना ही अच्छा स्मेल करेगा।
Yes.
तो
Chaitanya. Chaitanya, Atma, Brahma,
चेतना,
Chetana.
Yeah. One more question, maybe final for this stream, since I know we are coming at time. One question I had, which I think a lot of people, maybe like you said, my consciousness level is very low. So this question pops into my mind. Um, we talked about how everyone can get advancement in their levels of consciousness. Eventually, they'll be at the same path that everyone else is, and eventually, they'll be at that end point as well. Would my karma from the present birth affect the level of consciousness in such a way that they also descend instead of ascending ever?
I don't know. That's a question for Bhagwan Krishna. Like,
See, what you eat is what you think, right? Your thoughts, what you eat also. So he talks about in the further chapters like Sattva Gun, Rajas Gun, and Tamas Gun. He also says the three quality kind of food, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. If you eat good, you will behave, your thinking will be good.
Yeah.
So it is like I have seen one Bollywood movie, like where the villain say, "Atma to amar hai na, मैं तुझे नहीं मार रहा हूँ." Tishung.
Yeah.
So like yeah. So I would say your karma will affect, like no matter how much spiritually enlightened you are. But I will tell you, the Isavasya Upanishad really clearly says very clear about this, and he said, like, Isavasya Upanishad really says that one who perceives all beings as the self,
Mhm.
सभी को अपने मैं आत्मा में आत्मा का पुंज मानता है, चैतन्य का पुंज मानता है. For him, how can there be delusion or grief?
Yeah.
So when he sees this oneness, he will not do anything bad. Also, Isavasya Upanishad goes on saying that some people are hardcore believer of Advaita, some people are hardcore believer of Dvaita. So he says, like in the in the same book, mantra number 12, he says, they fall into blind darkness, and
Mm.
who worship the unmanifested, and those who worship the manifested, they fall into the greater darkness. So means, because you see the only one side, आप खाली अद्वैत को पकड़ के रहोगे ना तो आपको दूसरा नहीं मिलेगा, खाली आप द्वैत को पकड़ के रहोगे तो पूरा पिक्चर भी नहीं मिलेगा. So when you see द्वैता and अद्वैत को छोड़ के, when you see the whole universe is like as द्वैता and advaita, there is no difference. So then with the both of these worships, you will attain the moksha. And that's what Adi, so that's why Adi Shankaracharya, who was practiced, who preached Advaita, also wrote many stotras for all gods and goddesses.
Hmm. I see. That's a very interesting example. Thank you.
And your karma will what you do, because your karma will always bite you. At the end, you get moksha when your karma balance becomes zero or you detach from the karma. So the detaching from karma is like कहते हैं ना नेकी करो कुएं में डालो. Basically same thing, I would say that. So
Yeah.
it will be, but like Vikas ji said, only Lord Krishna will know. But if you like practice a lot, if like अगर एक दिन भी ना अगर आप कुछ बुरा कर्म किए होगे ना तो your conscience will hurt you.
Yes. Very true.
Right, so karma can is like will always haunt you down, like will follow you. So
Yeah.
if you do good karma, because when you believe in, see, you're purifying your mind by
Mm.
having oneness. If you have you see everybody as one, I don't think you will do bad karma.
That's true.
So my only, sort of concern on that is that you think you're doing bad karma in this birth, right? But who knows what kind of karma you did in the last birth? Maybe this birth is an upgrade over last one.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That's
So,
true.
but I think we should always try to do our best. You
Yeah.
know, if you cannot make anybody's life better, at least
Don't
don't
make it
cause suffering.
worse.
At
Don't
least
cause
don't cause
issues.
suffering.
Yeah. That's absolutely correct. I agree with it 100%. Awesome. So I think with that, we can stop today's stream.
I will
Um,
say one more thing on
mhm.
that. Even if you've done past karma, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tam sarva papebhyo moksha ishyami ma shutaha. You give everything, surrender to the manifested one.
Mm. That is
You
true.
believe in unmanifested, but you also thinking that you are being oneness. You give everything to him. Then it's up to the Krishna.
He has said, right, like you keep doing your karmas and be detached from the result altogether. I think that's the most important takeaway from Bhagavad Gita, where
And I
he's,
would like to add one thing. This is the just the beginning portion of this thing. We
yes.
are with Vikas ji is very renowned scholar. He is speaking from his own experience. Basically, he has been doing meditation and everything. He has written a book and he is writing another book. I would like to request Vikas ji. Can you tell us about your next book you are writing? A small some glimpses of it.
So the first book was primarily about identity, who I am, right? Second book is about what is the meaning of life, what is the purpose, how to live a good life,
Mm.
right? So I'll just leave it with one thought: is universe is going from low entropy to high entropy, from big bang to big cold freeze, where everything will evaporate, right?
Mhm.
In this whole trillions and trillions and trillions of years, very small window when we have enough complexity to have this beautiful life.
Yeah. Very.
Similarly, in a human life, we are a baby, low entropy, an old person, high entropy.
Mhm.
Very short window
Yeah.
where we can create things. So use your God-given gifts and build something. Create things of beauty.
That's
Right?
true.
Satyam Shivam Sundaram. That's sort of like the theme of the second book
Yeah.
is truth, beauty, God, right?
Yeah.
So create beautiful things.
That's an amazing message, Vikasji. For every one of our viewers, I would highly recommend reading his book. I did too. I think it was really, really well written. It flows very nicely. It has a very strong message communicated very in a very simple way that everyone will understand. So if you have not read his book yet, please go ahead and read it. We have a link here that can take you to his book. It's called Waiting to Breathe, and his name is Vikas Agarwal. So please search for it, read it, and stay connected with us as we continue to have more streams with Mr. Vikas Agarwal, talking more about Bhagavad Gita than what we did today. This was more of a beginning conversation. So we'd love to have you all join and talk about it, and we'd love to see you have comments, questions, and asking Mr. Vikasji all these questions that I'm privileged enough to ask him on the show.
I just want to add one more thing. The next session will be like Vikas ji gave one example, like it's like flying F-35, right? So you have at the end of this, all those sessions, I'm sure you'll be able to fly F-35 in spiritually. I mean, in the mind of the spiritual world. But I will tell you, in the spiritual world, every experience should be your own experience because every experience is unique. And that's also Sahasra Shirsha Purusha in the Purusha Sukta means because that Purusha has 1,000 heads. I mean, this 1,000 is just a metaphor. It means infinite, literally. So, and everyone has their own thoughts and their own experience. Everybody learns from their own experience. Vikas ji and like others can guide you how to do, but then your experience will be your own unique experience.
मैं तो बहुत तुच्छ मात्र हूँ किसी को भी गाइड करने के लिए पंडित जी. But I just, share my experiences.
That's
No.
all we are doing. I mean, that what our experiences will guide others, and we also learn from others' experiences, right? Reading like Ramana Maharushi and Yukteswar Giri, like
Anand
Paramahansa
Karuni.
Yogananda, like
Yeah.
all of those, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I would recommend everyone to keep joining us for the upcoming streams with Mr. Vikasji. Ask questions, come with questions. Ask them on the live stream. We also have an option if you want to join our live stream and ask a question. We also have an option for that. But please stay connected with us, and please share our videos and teachings with everyone that you love and work with or are friends with. Please comment and also subscribe. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you.